We're into dividing polynomials here, and I actually kind of think this is kind of fun because you can see how you can actually divide a polynomial using long division, which seems kind of crazy, but we're going to find out how we can do that. So in this case, when I'm dividing these two polynomials, I have a binomial divided by a monomial. And what we're going to do, anytime we're dividing by a monomial, we're going to write it as a fraction. Okay, so if you divide by a monomial, which is like one term, we're going to divide as a fraction. So I'm going to put that 4x squared minus 18x over 2x. And I'll show you why we do that. Okay? We could use long division, and I'll explain that as well, but we want to divide as a fraction whenever we're dividing by a monomial. Because all I have to do is, I just split this up. I can take 4x squared divided by 2x, and then I can also take negative 18x divided by 2x. So basically, I'm just dividing each one. Then I'm going to take a negative 18x squared, so I'm just going to put minus 18x over 2x. Because a negative divided by a positive is a negative. And then when I simplify that, it works out nice and easy because an x in the 4x squared over 2x, and x cancels with an x down here. So I'm just left with an x up top. And 4 over 2, well, 2 goes into both. Well, so 2 goes into 4 twice, and 1 down here. So I don't really even need to write that. So what's left up top? I got a 2x over 1, but I don't need to write that over 1. Minus, well, the x's cancel, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. Or I can think 2 goes into there 9 times, 2 goes into there once. So 9 over 1 is really just 9. And I'm done. 2x minus 9. Okay, and for most of you, you're going to see, well, 4x divided by 2x squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared divided by x is just x. And negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. And the x's cancel, so I'm done. So a lot of you can see it that way. That's fine. Some of you might need to write it out in your fraction form like I did just now. And that's just great too. Okay, it's not one way better or worse. Some people just really need to see it. Okay, so that's my answer. I could have also done this long division style. And that's what we're going to do eventually with some other things. But we don't want to when we're just dividing by a monomial. But I could. I could have wrote the 2x on the outside of my long division bar. And then 4x squared minus 18x. And it's kind of the same thing. I just think of, well, what do I need to multiply this guy by to get it to be 4x squared? Because what we want to do is cancel this first part when we subtract, right? Just like we do in long division. So what do I need to multiply by to get to 4x squared? Well, the 2 needs to become a 4, so I got to multiply by 2. And the x needs to become an x squared, so I need to multiply by an x. Well, then it's just like we do in our long division. So 2x times 2x gives us 4x squared. And we subtract just like we do in long division. So those cancel, so that's 0. I don't even really need to write that. And I'm going to bring down my negative 18x like we always do, minus 18x. Well, this is kind of confusing having that 0 there. So 0 minus that is just minus 18x. And then I do the same thing. Well, 2x times what is going to get me to negative 18x? Well, 2 times what gets me to negative 18? 2 times negative 9 gives me to negative 18. And then x I don't need to multiply by anything, so I already have the x. So there's my x, because 2x times negative 9 is negative 18x. And we subtract, and negative 18x minus 18x is 0, so we are done. Okay, so that is just a little more confusing, isn't it? When I could have just done it just as a fraction right away. I could have just done it just like that, and that was much easier. I got the exact same answer. So whenever you divide by a monomial, write as a fraction, and it'll save you some time. All right, so let's take a look here. Well, what are we dividing by? A monomial, so that's right as a fraction. So 2y squared minus 3y minus 9, all over 3y. And then we go ahead and break it up. So 2y squared divided by 3y. Then I have a negative 3y. Don't forget that minus sign in front. Negative 3y divided by 3y. And then I have a negative 9 divided by 3y. So negative 9 divided by 3y. And then we go through and simplify each one. Well, the 2 and the 3 don't cancel at all. Y squared over the y, 1y cancels, so that's gone and this is gone. So really I have 2y over 3 minus, well, they both cancel. The y's cancel, the 3's cancel, so what's left? It's not 0, it's not gone. Anything divided by itself is just 1. So 3y divided by 3y is just 1. And then over here, 9 divided by 3 is 3, but the y is still on bottom here, right? So let's think about this canceling y's, or simplifying. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 3 once. So it's really minus 3 over 1y, or 3 over y. So just be careful with that part of it. I see a lot of people that want to write this as 3y. Well, 9 divided by 3 is 3, which is good, but the y is on bottom still. So that would make it on top if I wrote it like that. So it's got to be like this. So just be careful with that. So divide by a monomial, write it as a fraction, and just divide each term individually. Here's where it gets a little trickier. Now I have a binomial that we're dividing. So this is where you want to use long division. So I got my r plus 3 out front, divided by 2r squared plus 5r minus 3. Well, 2r squared plus 5r minus 3 divided by r plus 3, right? So I just deal with that first term. I want to get a 2r squared to cancel. So I just got to think, how do I get this r to become a 2r squared? Well, we got to multiply by a 2, and we got to multiply by an r, right? Because r times r gives us r squared. So now I know I'm going to multiply by 2r. So that's what we got to deal with right away. But then I got to think about this. I got to take 2r times r, which is 2r squared, like we talked about. But I also got to take 2r times 3, which is 2 times 3 is 6, and I still have my r. So 2r times 3 is 6r. Don't forget to do both terms there when you do that. I know you just look at the 2r squared to determine what you want to multiply by, but mathematically, I got to take this 2r times the r and the 3. Okay, well now, how does it work long division? We subtract, right? Boom, we subtract. And this is where I confuse myself sometimes when I subtract. I get going in too fast of a hurry. So I like to change it to addition. You can go either way. Some people can do the 5 minus 6 and realize that it's negative 1r or negative r. But for me, I like to change to addition and then change the sign of my terms. That's easier for me because then I can see, well, I have a positive 2r and a negative 2r, so they cancel. And then I have a 5r and a negative 6r, which gives me a negative 1r. Okay, that's how I prefer it. You can go either way. That's perfectly fine. Well, then we bring down our negative 3, minus 3. And I don't like to have this negative 1 in front of my r, so I'm just going to make it a negative r. I don't need that 1 there. Well, then I got to think, what do I need to multiply by? What do I need to multiply this r by to get it to a negative r? Well, just negative 1. So negative 1. And negative 1 times r, right? Because I got to take negative 1 times r, which is negative r. And negative 1 times 3, which is negative 3. And then we subtract. Or like I said before, I like to change to addition and then change the sign of my terms. Because then I can see those cancel. So 0, there's no remainder. And I'm done. So my answer is 2r minus 1. Okay, I know a lot of you are asking, what happens if you actually have a remainder? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to take a look at that. Let's try another guy. So I got my x squared plus 7x minus 15. It's a binomial, so we got to use long division, not a fraction. And we go ahead. I want this x to become an x squared, so we multiply by x. So x times x is x squared, and x times negative 2 is negative 2x. Right? Because I got to take it times both those guys. Don't forget to do that. Just want a quick reminder. I know hopefully we're starting to get it now. Okay. And we subtract. And this is where I said, you can subtract because x squared minus x squared is easy. That's gone. But some people struggle with the 7 minus negative 2x. Because it's really, what I like to do is change to addition, change my signs. Well, now it's easy because when I add, those cancel, and 7x plus 2x is 9x. That's why I like to change to addition and then change the sign of all my terms. Just like our old rule that we learned a long time ago. Well, now we go to the next one. Well, I got to bring down my minus 15. Minus 15, right? You always bring it down in long division. Then I got to think, I want this x to be a 9x. So what do we got to multiply by? Well, a positive 9. So x times 9, or 9 times x, is 9x. And then 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. Well, this should give us a remainder here. So we're subtracting. And like I said before, I like to change to addition and change by signs. You don't have to do that, but it just helps, I believe. So those cancel, and negative 15 plus negative 18 is positive 3. Positive 3. Well, let's think about how do I write this remainder now? How do I write this? Well, let's think about this. What if I did like 9 divided by 4? Well, 4 goes into 9 2 times, which is 8, and we have 1 left over. So it's really 1 out of 4. So basically, I'm just putting this 1 over what's on the outside, the 1 over 4, right? It's 1/4 left over. And that's kind of just being added on. So we just really added that 1/4 onto the 2. So that's all that happens here. So all we do is we take this 3, a remainder of 3. So we add that 3 over that x minus 2. So it's 3 out of the x minus 2. It's the remainder over what's on the outside when you're dividing there for your remainder. So there's my answer. X plus 9 with remainder of, so this guy's your remainder. So you got to say plus 3 over x minus 2. So really you're just putting the remainder over what's on the outside, the divisor. All right, let's do one more, just so we really got this down. We got an x cubed now, minus, well, it's minus 34x. I'd be careful though. Since there's no x squared term here, there's really 0x squareds, right? So I can either write 0x squared, because I got to keep that placeholder, or I can leave a space. Minus 34x plus 45. And we're dividing by x minus 5. So I'll go ahead, since we're missing x squared, maybe just put the minus 0x squared, just so it helps you. Well, I need this x to become an x cubed, so we got to multiply by an x squared. So x times x squared is x cubed. And then x squared times negative 5 is negative 5x squared. That's why we need that placeholder, because I couldn't subtract. I couldn't do this. I couldn't take negative 34x minus 5x squared. So you got to have that placeholder. So this is important, that 0x minus 0x squared. Or plus 0x squared. I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll probably confuse you. Okay, now we go through. We subtract. And like I said, I like to change to addition and change the sign of my terms. So those cancel. And 0x squared plus a 5x squared is 5x squared. And we bring down our next term like always, so minus 34x. And I gotta take x times what gives me 5x squared? Well, I need a 5, so positive 5. And I need an x squared, so x times x, so 5x. So 5x times x is 5x squared. And 5x times negative 5 is negative 25x. And we're subtracting, and like I always said, I like to change to addition and change the signs. So that cancels, and we're left with negative 9x, and bring down our 40 plus 45. Losing space here. Well, I need my x to become a negative 9x, so I got to multiply by negative 9. And negative 9 times x is negative 9x. And negative 9 times negative 5 is positive 45. So it looks like these guys are going to cancel, so with the remainder of 0, which means we are done. X squared plus 5x minus 9. Very good. So just the important things, how to do the remainder, how to do the placeholder, and when you can write as a fraction, when you have to use long division. Just so some tricks to follow to help save some time.